What's up, guys? Welcome back. It's October 5th. Took a week off. I was out of town last week. Marty's out of town this week, but he's jumping on with his technological device.
Yes. Thanks
And
to Marty Kaiser.
yeah, and yeah, we're catching up, and we're getting closer to the season. You know, the programs are putting out their preseason registration. We're going to interview a coach today from Winnebago. They're starting their kids program for the first year ever. I don't know if they had a kids program before, but
they've co-op kind of was like Pecatonica and Durand out there. I think they've run a kids program, but I think Anthony Campriola is starting up their own in Winnebago. So it'll be just like a Winnebago club.
That's awesome for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it can. I know their numbers have been not very good the last few years out there in Winnebago. So hopefully, getting some interest. And I know a couple of the dads or parents involved were guys I wrestled with in high school, and now they either have sons or nephews that are interested, and they were helping before. So hopefully they jump over to the Winnebago program. And
yeah, you're a bagel guy, aren't you?
Yep.
Awesome.
All the way through.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of my point is this over the next couple of weeks and up until the season, I'm going to really try to do my best to get as many coaches on locally to kind of bring some exposure to the programs, let people know the information about signing up, and just talk about topics that I think are important. For instance, one aspect that I'm going to really focus on the next couple of weeks is just encouraging parents that have wrestlers to talk to another parent who maybe their friend or on the football team isn't normally going out for wrestling, convincing them to give the sport a try, those types of things. And just thinking about the connection between football and wrestling, what are you guys' thoughts on like the sales pitch? And again, I don't think it's a sales pitch in the sense that you're trying to convince them something that's not true, but knowing people who have had success in wrestling and football, from your own experience, what would you tell someone? Yeah.
Well, it's very simple that wrestling and football go hand in hand. They both involve hand fighting. They both involve positioning. It's very similar, especially for a lot of those offensive and defensive linemen. When I was coaching, we would go out to the kids club football practice, and I would take my football players who were wrestlers, and they would talk to like each team, and then we'd hand out the pamphlets. And then, that's how the Cassiopes got started. They were at football practice with my son, Nate. And I told Tony, the old man, I said, Tony, you need to get your kids out for wrestling. And from there, it's kind of like history, right? That's how we met. But it's just so I could name so many kids in the Hononegah wrestling program that were in kids football, and that's how it started. And then another thing is that you got to get to the freshman football team. You got to get those first-year freshmen out, because by the time they're seniors, they're the guys that are making a difference in a lineup. So, you just, like I've always said before, you got to be a salesperson. You got to be going out there. And they want to see the head coach. They want to see who that person is. They want to see who's in charge of the kids club. Then all of a sudden, it just flows, and everybody's talking about it. And everybody's talking about it. Next thing you know, at kids club signups, you're like, oh my God, we got 120 kids.
Yeah.
It takes work. It takes work.
A couple things where you talk about the hand fighting and on the line, what you learn in wrestling. We have a freshman football player, and I'm going to say his name, Ben Proknicki, and he wrestled for the Bandits. It was a state qualifier. He's a big kid. And I was talking to him the other day, and I go, hey, how's football going? He goes, oh, my gosh. He goes, did you know how much wrestling has helped me in football? And I just started laughing. I was like, well, of course, you're hand fighting. He goes, I never realized that. And I've said in those practices, and I listen to Cal and I listen to Justin Barber talk to those guys, hand fighting and everything. And it was like all of a sudden the light bulb went off his head. And I go, so now your job as the freshman football player, is to convince all your other football friends to come out for wrestling to help you guys get better. And he goes, oh, 100%, 100%. So I kind of laughed to see, like you said, I mean, everyone says it, everyone knows it, but for a kid to kind of finally realize it. But I'll go a little further, getting kids out and how do you get them out? My son tried wrestling last year. He wanted no part of it. He's 7 years old. But we went to one of the beginner tournaments the Bandits put on. He watched, and there were some of his classmates doing it. And all of a sudden he was like, hey, I want to try that. So we'll go to practices, let you wrestle. And he loved the practices. We didn't do any tournaments. He didn't want to do that yet, which I'm fine with. But, kids talking to kids seeing their friends do it really can help get kids out, just come and, go watch one time, see what it's all about,
Yeah. And then, the great thing about it too, is that then as a parent, you get to meet even more parents. You go from youth football right into wrestling. So you get to meet that. And if you have any form of knowledge of wrestling, you can educate those parents about the sport, because a lot of times you hear mom saying, put a half in, and the kid's in a stance.
He's standing up.
Yeah, he's standing up. Put a half in.
Or you just say, get him down, Johnny. Get him down.
So, I mean, so many people that I hang out with to this day are from the wrestling program, from Hononegah Wrestling. I mean, it's just how it is. And the big thing is a kid coming home and with a piece of paper and going, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to wrestle. Because like I told you guys a couple weeks ago, that there are not many parents that are going to come up and say, hey, you know what? Have you ever thought about wrestling? No, if they never wrestled before, they're not going to say anything to the kid, and you're not going to see it on TV right now. So you just got to.
Well, I guess that's kind of my point, is if there is, any, I put something out yesterday, but I want to continue to reiterate, like, I heard something yesterday, talking about how to communicate to people that, we kind of have to work together. So don't wait for somebody else to start promoting it. So if you're a parent, if you're a coach, find somebody that you find somebody who isn't a wrestler and try to convince them to wrestle that, this coming season. If there is a parent that's like, hey, explain whether or not you're having positive effects with your child. My child needed a physical outlet, and wrestling is a tremendous physical outlet for young kids. So just I think encouraging people to take action, right? I wanted to take action by creating some media attention and stuff in the area, but you got to kind of like you said, we have to. I don't know if kids are necessarily listening to this, but if a young wrestler in high school was listening, to encourage another kid to go out for wrestling would really help just grow participation. And you never know, like, again, we both, all of us have seen examples of kids that kind of started late and have had tremendous amounts of success. So like, you never really know how a kid's going to, take to the sport. So, just encouraging people to do those things, making pamphlets or whatever, but really just acting on it.
Yeah,
I think of wrestling it's never too late to go out, right?
Totally.
You've never wrestled. You come out as a freshman, you come as a sophomore, senior. The success you have is going to be different than other kids' success, but it doesn't mean you can't be successful. I've listened to coaches in other sports. They have a freshman that tries out for their sport and they've never played. It's not worth my time. And I kind of scratch my head, because then why are you coaching, right? Isn't that what we're here to do? We're supposed to teach you the sport. And I used to love the kids. They've never wrestled. You get them out as a freshman or whatever, and you teach them something. You're not teaching them, 1,000 moves. You just teach them a few basics, let them master it, and let them have fun. I mean, it's never too late.
Yeah, the sports specifically are the ones that are cutting sports, like baseball, basketball. I've heard so many coaches going, "Oh, this kid's just terrible. He's going to get cut the first week." And I'm like, "Well, who is this kid? Yeah. I'll look at that kid." I mean, like Kevin Sellover. I don't know if you guys knew Kevin is.
Yep.
He was a 215-pounder foreman. He played football 4 years at NIU, but he got cut out in basketball. And I was on him like that. And just another kid. You know what? If I had to cut kids in my life, Corey Anderson would have got cut the very first day from wrestling. But look what happens with Corey Anderson. He's one of the best freaking UFC guys in the world, and you don't know what's going to happen in 4 years. You know, he started as a freshman, so they turn into men.
We used to have a pretty good working relationship with the boys basketball team. So when freshmen had their tryouts, I would kind of watch whoever you're cutting, send them our way. You remember we had Harrison Ford, our heavyweight. I mean, he tried out for basketball. The kid couldn't walk, chew gum, look straight without falling down. And, you know, you could watch the very first day he's cut, and I just brought him over. Come on, you gotta wrestle. You're not a basketball player. You know, and it worked out well for him.
You know, and sometimes all it takes is to put your arm around some kid and say, you know what, maybe basketball's not for you, but I'll guarantee you wrestling will be.
Yeah.
You know,
we don't cut.
You're
there.
They cut themselves.
I was just gonna say some kids find a way to get cut, but
but yeah, it's you just like at Dalton, like you've talked, and hopefully there are kids, or even I don't know if there's kids listening today because they're all sleeping, but if there's parents listening, sell the sport, talk to your friends, get everybody out.
Yeah, I think I've definitely thought a lot about this, and just this is definitely just one component. We got to really encourage other people to participate with selling it, getting other kids out. But yeah, I'm excited about the season. I think you know, I have some ideas with the you know, the platform, I guess, to kind of put a bigger spotlight on some of these local programs. And so yeah, the season's I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully as the football season winds down, we can figure out a way. Maybe you guys can think over the next couple of weeks if there's interesting ways to connect with people in the area to kind of get them out. I do think we could do that. But
you know what else I think is, like last year when Hononegah wrestled Harlem at Harlem, they had some of their kids club kids wrestle too beforehand. They had like a little dual meet. If we could find out something like that's going on, it'd be great if we could go cover it live, you know, and talk to the youth coaches and talk to the kids and stuff. And it'd be great.
Yeah, I do think we should figure out how to highlight that type of stuff, you know, especially the youth level. You kind of, you know, it's kind of it's a gray area, right? Like, you know, you really fall in love and get connected with the passion or interest around like succeeding at that age. But at the same time, like, it's really not that you really can't be that good at the youth level, but you still want to make it an experience that's enjoyable, right? Like, so that you can be motivated to go to. You know, I'm interested to hear about whether or not we can do like preseason event type thing where we can do a little bit of a showcase for the area, you know.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Anything is good.
Yeah. McNames, you were about to say something though?
I was just going to say, at that youth level, sometimes you see success is stressed a little too much rather than, you know, let's get you to love the sport, stick with the sport, you know.
Yeah. Well,
and that's not just in wrestling. That's true across the board in some youth sports. You know, you see there's too much stress put on. Oh, we're winning this. I mean, baseball teams, softball teams, basketball, there's 5,000 world championship tournaments that they're going to now. And, you know, oh, we won this. Well, yippee, but, you know, can your kid do the fundamentals? You know, if they can't, then are you really, you know, helping them be successful later?
I went to a youth football game last weekend and saw 2 youth teams playing. It's not the kids. It's the parents.
It's the parents. The parents are crazy.
Oh my God. I'm just sitting there going, you got to be kidding me. Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
these were like 7th grade kids and they were winning, and it was actually a really good game. And the kids had pretty good technique, but man, the parents are just nut jobs.
Yeah. Well, again, Marty, we've talked about this. We kind of need nut jobs in order to really, we have to help mentor and guide some of these parents, I think, better.
Yeah.
because they're the go-getters.
They're the ones
right?
that will.
They're the ones that are going to talk to another kid about doing something. You know,
for sure. But I just sat there and went, I did all this stuff. I did all the youth stuff. I don't think I was a nut job coaching in high school, but I was never a nut job with kids, young kids.
I think it's really easy. I think,
about that.
What's that?
Oh, nothing, Marty.
I just think it's easy, just being in the experience myself as a coach, it is there is an exciting thing that you can that can take you away. You have to have strong mental fortitude to catch yourself, to not get, too wild too early on. You have to sustain the long period of time. So again, like I said, I just think they need mentorship, but yeah, Marty, you got anything else? We're going to let you go, and I'm going to bring on Joe Flynn.
What do you got going on today, Marty?
I'm at a fundraiser for my brother-in-law who passed away from pancreatic cancer in Eldridge, Iowa. So my sister does a great job. So we're here getting ready to go up and help get everything set up. And then next week, I'm going to be at the Iowa-Wisconsin football game, or Iowa-Washington football game, but I'll still find time to do a podcast.
Great.
Is it at Iowa? I take it.
It is at Iowa.
You know what you need to do is you need to find one of the Branch brothers, and let's make it happen. Sit them down, get in the new wrestling facility, and let's talk.
I should. Well,
let them know.
Yeah.
Marty, if you want, I'll send my buddy Ryan Morningstar a message and see if we can make something happen.
Yeah, but here's the problem. Okay, that involves being on time.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
And a few other things.
All right, now we're going to bring on Joe Flynn, head coach at Winnebago High School, to talk what's going on there. So yeah.
How's it going?
What's going on, Joe?
Just early Saturday morning, had that regular scheduled physical, so just had to get that taken care of first this morning.
Oh yeah, you're all good.
All good.
Healthy,
as far as I know.
There you go.
So Joe, what's up?
Did you already get your workout in this morning?
I'm gonna go do that after this. So I couldn't quite get myself up that early. So
yeah, what do you expect, McNames? He said he had to go to the doctor before this. He's supposed to wake up at 5:30 and work out.
Well, I think he does CrossFit. Those people are a little crazy. They might get up that early. I don't know.
I used to, but now I just wake up during the week and get up at 5 in the morning and go work out at the high school. So
there you go. See,
yeah.
Not that crazy then.
I guess. Well, I wanted to bring some other coaches on over the next couple of weeks and talk about what's going on in the area and wrestling. And I wanted to bring on you, Joe Flynn, head wrestling coach at Winnebago High School, because I noticed that you guys are starting up kids club this season, and just in an effort to continue to spread the word and try to get kids out. Tell us about the kids program and what kind of motivated the start, and
so it really comes. It's something we've needed in Winnebago for a while now. We've had a few pop up in the area. Byron's had their extreme program for quite a few years, and then the past, I want to say 5 years, the DuPec Kids Club program started up. And it always felt like there wasn't quite something that was necessarily ours. I know in talking to Nino Capriola, who's really the head of the Kids Club program, his goal is not only for Winnebago, but just for wrestling in general, to see, an increase in the number of participants in this area. I know you guys are the same way. Like, you feel like this area could just constantly be improving on the participation, whether it's in Rockford or the surrounding areas. But he's started it as a result of his grandfather. His grandfather was a big supporter, I'm sure, all the way back when Coach was here. So his grandfather, Tony Capriola Sr., was, a huge supporter of Winnebago wrestling and the sport. And then after he passed away a few years ago, they started the Tony Capriola Sr. Foundation. So Nino has started putting together camps, whether it be like preseason camps, kind of rookie camps, just to get kids aware of the sport. Winnebago just hasn't had that. Even in This is my 17th year in the district, but there were never a lot of kids, at the younger ages that were involved in wrestling. You'd find maybe one or two here or there. I work at the K through 2 building now. So just through those efforts, just trying to get kids more aware of that. This is an option for a sport. Not everyone has to be a basketball player in the winter. Not everyone is a basketball player in the winter. There are other options. And so that's kind of really what we'd like to see happen through this program, is just giving kids another option. And I think, even though the DPEC program is close, I think just when you eliminate an obstacle of travel, I think that makes it a lot easier for people to say, hey, we'll check this out. If it's 5 minutes down the road versus a 20-minute drive to another community, it just makes it a little more accessible for them.
Yeah, I would agree. I say this a lot, but when it comes to, growing the sport or getting people out, I always think like proximity. I never had to go more than a 5-minute, I ran to practice in school and stuff. And so that was really easy for me to be participating in off season, whether it was lifting or, preseason running, being close to the high school for me was really, really helpful. So yeah, having proximity is definitely a benefit. What do you guys do for like youth, like football? Is it just middle school? Do they have a youth program?
So that's been a big change as well in this community. They used to kind of collaborate with the Park District. I can't remember exact age. I want to say they started as 4th grade for the junior tackle program. So recently the junior tackle program kind of took off on its own. It has its own board now. So I believe they can start that as early as, I want to say, 3rd grade. So that's 3rd through 8th grade. So now they're doing a lot more developmental with that. Just getting that program, trying to kind of regrow that and get that built back up.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things we were talking about this morning, and knowing how I would say integral it is for a lot of successful, youth programs to have a relationship with like the football kids, because a group of kids that are on the football team transition, they go into wrestling. And that was what it was when I was a kid. There was a whole bunch of kids that played football, and the dads who coached came over and helped coach wrestling. And it was just it was a very easy transition. And so we've been encouraging, anybody who's listening who has, their kid in fall football, to encourage parents who might not have a kid that has gone out for wrestling in the past to try to take it up. So how big are those programs?
I couldn't give you an exact number. I think they're doing pretty well. I think they've got some solid numbers. I know the big thing for us, kind of off on a tangent with that, is, for the longest time when I was here, part of the biggest inhibitor for me was I just didn't know anybody. I moved into the community from Belvedere. So I just didn't have those connections, and I didn't know any parents that would want to be involved and help. Starting a kids club and trying to run a high school program, that's not a one-man job. And I finally feel like I've got people around me that are willing to help and willing to go above and beyond, whether it's, my assistant coaches, whether it's Nino, a couple parents I know, Chris Kraft, Zach Foster, they're willing to kind of put in that work and make it a team effort versus just a one man trying to take over all of that. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for us and for any program, is just finding a group of people that will help along those lines.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's good to have. You always need a team. I was going to ask McNames a question, but you gotta.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just in general, like, have you seen, like, what is your initial response? Like, where are you guys at currently with that?
As far as Kids
Just
number.
the kids number. I saw you guys were doing camps and stuff over the last
I wasn't
6
because
months or
of
so.
homecoming festivities this week. I wasn't able to attend the first camp, but I heard it went well.
But didn't you have a camp? Did they have a camp with like Nelson Baker and
we did that back I believe in the spring. And we had some good numbers. I got some good feedback from parents. That their kids really loved it. They were excited about it. And it really was just a simple taste of what wrestling is. But I've got nothing but pretty good feedback from people in regards to that type of stuff. And that's the thing too, I think is we have a great wrestling community in the area. It's just it's smaller, but I think we've got people, whether it's, Nelson from Rochelle willing to come up and help each other. I think that's the biggest thing is helping each other. Not feeling like we're in a competition until we get in season and then just making it a fun competition. I mean, the amount of guys I've had that, know each other from other teams because of clubs and things like that. That helps a lot. So, but in regards to, our own kids numbers, I definitely push it. The kids at my school know I coach wrestling and, I get the information out to them. One of my assistant coaches at the upper elementary is able to get some flyers out and things like that. So I think, getting that communication, and reaching them directly is a lot easier than just having a faceless flyer sent out in the mail or anything like that. So,
yeah. Well, great. So the question I want to ask McNames, obviously, you and I both know, many out there might know McNames as the former head wrestling coach at Belvedere, but before that, he was a high school wrestler at Winnebago. Yeah. So McNames, tell us a little bit about Winnebago history and what it was like going to school there.
The program was never huge. It wasn't like we had 30 plus wrestlers. I think my senior year we had maybe 15 to 20, but in '84 they took fourth in state, and they had a couple guys. Mike Osborne took second in state that year. Barry Palm took third or fourth. And it kind of paved the way for kids who, basketball was not as big as it is now at Winnebago, but basketball was still, the winter sport everyone did, and wrestling was kind of the side. Jim Teresi was the head coach in '84, and through that time, I think he stepped down like '85 or '86, but he also, when he stepped down, took over the junior high program. Junior high, you could do basketball and then you could also do wrestling. So we'd have a lot of kids in the wrestling program. And, Jim would just say, hey, you're going to be a wrestler. And Matt Zickert was the head coach then. He had taken over and he was right there. And so basically, if you wrestled in junior high and you were horrible in basketball, they just made you wrestle in high school. I started wrestling in 7th grade because I couldn't make a layup. I mean, that was basically how it went down. But then, and things have gotten throughout the years, we used to have to practice at the junior high in the cafeteria, which it's not even the junior high now. It's an elementary school. Right.
That's the upper elementary school now. So,
during the winter, we'd walk over to the junior high and we'd have to get the mats. Sometimes we'd have to carry them down the stairs into the cafeteria, roll them out. And every night we'd have to roll them up and carry them back up to put them away. So it was the little things I learned from that aspect of wrestling there, it changed me because, there's a lot of dedication. You were committed, you watch the basketball players, they just walk in, the balls are there. And, but yeah, there was a lot of pride in the program back then. And, we had decent teams throughout the years, but we just didn't have strength in numbers to really compete. Even back then, Dakota was pretty good. I think my senior year, we took second in the regional to Dakota. But we had a lot of good individuals and, the Elson family back in the day and just keep moving through. Seiko later, Zach Foster was a solid wrestler back in the day. Inscos were good wrestlers. So there's been a lot of good individuals that come through. Joe's had a lot of great individual success, but, it's tough when you can't fill the 14 weight classes and, you could have 5 studs, but, it's tough when you have to give up those forfeits. But it's always been I think there's some pride in the program itself. It's just never, for some reason, been able to build the numbers. And I'm hoping, Nino's a great guy. I think, was he coaching when you were in high school, was us, Dalton, or was that after?
I think it had to be an after, because I think we're around the same age.
He coached for a year or two with us. And, he's very passionate, and, you can't say enough great things about his grandfather out there. I mean, what he did for wrestling and also just for Winnebago in general. I mean, back when I was in high school, there was a referendum that failed, and I think he basically helped fund to keep the sports alive in Winnebago. If it wasn't for him, they might have shut down sports for a year. But yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing now is great, Joe. Is like you said, it's tough when you come in, you don't know anyone. You can't run two programs at once and try to be successful. You're going to burn yourself out. And a good group of dads who really can get in and get in that community.
Yeah.
Like what you said before, you bring in outsiders to help, Nelson Baker and whoever from the area to come and help build programs, because at the end of the day, it just makes your program better, and no one wants to compete against. That makes them better.
Well, that's the thing. Like I always say, especially being in Class A, there's always been kind of a discrepancy, and we're trying to build up the class so we're a little more competitive and seen. I don't want to say equal. I don't know if equal is the right word, but kind of matching with 2A and 3A. And, I never want to see a program succeed just because other programs have gotten worse.
Right.
I want to see everyone continue to rise and just make Illinois wrestling better,
Yeah. I mean, Dakota's kind of dropped a little bit, but Dakota wants to compete, right? Dakota, Lena Winslow. I mean, those are the teams you want to compete with in Class A. And, when I first came out to Belvedere, Troy Johnson used to always say, "Oh, you're a junior high wrestler." That's what they called Class A back in the day, junior high, it was 1A, 2A. And I used to laugh. I go, there's a lot of great competition in 1A, and there's a lot of things you can't replicate. That small town pride. I mean, those duels and what happened. So,
and I think, I've noticed over the past few years, and obviously it's not like we do a straight head-to-head competition, but I would say that the top level 1A guys can compete at those other two classes. As far as team-wise and depth-wise, obviously that's not where we're at for the class, but I'd like to see that continually improve as well. So,
yeah, I think when we talk about some of these topics, the hard part about wrestling is we are a very competitive group of individuals, and oftentimes the sport is so emotionally driven that you start to really want to compete to the point where you don't work together. And we have to figure out ways to kind of collaborate with one another to kind of grow the programs so that we can have a good ecosystem to compete against, right? So the sport itself is an individual sport. The teams are kind of like the scaffolding that gives individual competition opportunity, right? You need 30 plus kids on a team to have practice partners. You need a group of motivated kids to motivate the other 30 kids. So we definitely need to do a better job of communicating. But this is, one of the reasons why I started this is just to kind of like, hey, let's get all the coaches on and talk about what they have going on and kind of like let that be the connection and work together and try to like, lower our competitive mindset a little bit so that we can kind of like collaborate and grow the community. Because obviously, like you said, to start this, our area is always like capable of growing because it's never been at its like potential. We've the high school programs have never had as many kids as the youth programs started with, and for whatever reason, we've lost kids going into the high school programs. And we have to correct that. We have to work on that. Because if all the youth kids kept wrestling throughout high school, all of our programs would be full and our lineups would be full. And I can imagine that the competition would be even better. But we have definitely untapped potential in our communities. So hopefully that we can do that.
Yeah.
And I think, something I've kind of a thought I've developed over the past few years is just being honest with you and your wrestlers about what they want to achieve and what they want to get out of the sport. I think too many of us, I know I, as a coach, you want everyone to have the aspirations to go to state or place at state. And it's like, that's just really not where everyone's at. Getting back to what you talked earlier about football players, it's like, listen, if you want to tell me you're going to just come up for the sport and you're just going to give me your 2 hours a day for practice and you're going to work hard and that's all you want to worry about, and just see what you can do. That's great. I want those guys on the team who aren't necessarily going to have a lot of success as far as wins, but want to improve the room, want to be a good teammate, want to be a support player, I guess, to put it that way. I think there's too many kids. If they're not going to be great at a sport, they don't go out for it anymore. Maybe that's old man me saying that. I don't know. But I feel like people just don't go out for a sport to go out for a sport. I think everyone should have that sport that they really want to achieve a lot in, or they want to really focus on, but then have that other one that complements it, and allows you to be a better player or better athlete in your primary, and that's what I tell guys is just be honest about the amount of dedication you want to put towards it. I ask at minimum, you bring 2 hours of hard work to our practices every day. And for that season, but if you're not going to touch the mat the rest of the off season, then just be honest about what you're going to be able to achieve in season, when it gets around to that time.
Yeah. I was just going to say, success is individually based, right? For one person, what their goals and desires are different than another kid,
Yeah.
Dalton's goals were a lot different than the first year wrestler, and that's fine. But like you said, when you come in there, just work hard for us, and you getting better could just be that you learned how to finish a single leg, and you can take someone down. Not everyone has to be a state champion. I think, kind of going with you said, kids, they like to be successful right away, and what they view as success might be different than what we view.
Yeah, and again, whenever we start talking about this, I always make sure to push back when we start generalizing kids, because kids are literally sponges to the environment around them.
Right.
And I think a lot of parents make it very apparent to the kid that if you're not good at it, well, then, find what you're good at, find your thing, find that thing, right? Where they don't realize that, say, participating in wrestling could simply be an emotional development tool just for maturity. It could literally just be that. It does not have to be a sport at all. It could just be a place where you go and work out and train and fight another kid in an environment where if it gets out of hand, a coach is going to stop it and let you cool down, and you don't have to get arrested or break a bone or something to do it, right? So we as adults oftentimes confuse the real reason why we want people to participate, because during the process, we see Johnny having success, and then everybody's like, hey, you should be like Johnny. It's like, well, Johnny wanted that, so I think a lot of parents confuse kids into, hey, just why can't you go do something? Why can't you just, use it for the purpose of like you said, benefiting football. If you're a football player and you don't wrestle, I don't think you're that serious about football, because I genuinely don't. I don't know how I would argue, but I would argue with every single football player, even if it was a quarterback, that the mental and physical development that you could achieve just in the martial art component of wrestling would lead to something. You see a lot of professional athletes starting to transition into, like, let me try MMA, let me try it, just from a training standpoint. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, you could have done it when you were young, and you could have learned some of those skills. But we do fall into that obsession. Like, okay, you're in it. Let's become the world champion. It's like, well, if you want to become a world champion, great. If you don't, and this goes back to one of those favorite quotes that I have is like, if your dreams don't match if your habits don't match your dreams and goals, change your habits or change your dreams and goals. So it's like, as long as the kid is coming in to a workout with a good attitude and good effort, then who cares what their dreams and goals are? And then your job as a coach and a parent and a mentor is to go, ask the question, what are your goals? Okay, what would you need to do to achieve those goals? How can I be of help to get you to accomplish those things? Hold them accountable. Hey, remember a couple months ago, you told me your goals were this. If you don't want them, that's fine. But if they are, we got to make sure that you're staying on task. So I think it's important for adults to kind of, live that true message of like, there's a lot of value that could come from participating in activity. It doesn't have to be, college, Olympic level scholarships or whatever. There are a lot of different reasons to participate.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of people get lost. They think they need to go to that level. They need to be, we're going to college, rather than let your kid compete, let them have fun, let them do the best let them be them, right? And the other thing I'll say is, those kids who, let's just use football, and you do nothing. Well, I'm training year round for football. Well, you're losing the competitive edge. We talked, we like to play golf a lot. That mentally, that's going to prepare you to be better in another sport. Sports just help be competitive. Golf, being competitive with yourself. There's a lot of times, we talk, embrace the grind in wrestling, man. It's mentally, you can get broke, but if you learn simple in golf, man, you're learning a lot of mental edge, and it translates sport to sport. And again, parents need to sit back sometime and let their kids just
figure it out
for them and let them go out there.
I remember being in high school, and Mike Hearn was the late Mike Hearn was the football coach. And I remember at the time, I can't remember if I was a freshman or sophomore, but guys were talking about just wanting to lift in the off season and not go out for a winter sport. And I remember specifically the words coming out of his mouth is, yeah, we're not going to do that. It's like, you're going to go out, be an athlete, be competitive. The weight room isn't going to keep you competitive. Go learn some other skills. And yeah, like we've been saying, just if it's not your primary sport, that's fine. Like at the end of the day, like it's going to make you a better athlete.
Right. Be an athlete. That's a great quote. Just be an athlete.
So, and I think, we've lost too much of that. We've got, people who are just volleyball players or just basketball players, but it's like, man, if you can go be an athlete, like that's going to benefit you so much more in the long run, because like Dalton said, just very few of us are going to go to that next level,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever heard a championship level athlete or a D1 athlete, ever go, man, my parents really forced me into this, and they forced me to go year round, and that's why I'm here, because they forced me to, it's part, they wanted it, so I think people that are going to achieve those things, it'll come out, if you foster the athletic drive and the development of your kid in the right way, like that'll come out eventually, if that's what they want to achieve.
Yeah.
Right. And I like your approach with those kids. Hey, just give me those 2 hours. I'm not going to force you to do anything, but probably eventually those guys want to compete. Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're an athlete and you're a competitor, sooner or later you want to compete.
Yeah.
But you don't know, this has to be, you have to. Because
if I want to, it's just a sport. It's probably for any sport, but I know wrestling especially, I can't want it more than they do, because whether it's, making the decision to drop a weight class or anything like that, I tell guys, I will never, ever tell you what weight class you have to go. I will make a suggestion, but at the end of the day, I'm not the one having to go through that process, to do those type of things. So, it comes down to how bad they want it or what they want to do. And then we just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Glad to McNames.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Dalton, but I was just going to, we've been talking football. Do you get a lot of support from your football program there?
It's been tough. No, not really. I know, I will say Coach Helm I've had some kids in the weight room in this fall, and when football's down there, I would say he's been the most vocal about it, about kids coming out and doing it. But I think as our numbers get smaller in this district, that's just the reality of where we're at right now. I think every coach is realizing like we've got to work together. We've got to share athletes essentially, because it's just going to make us better and it's going to make the school better. So
I was going to say, one of my good friends from high school and wrestler, Alan Gleam, I don't know if he's still on the football staff.
He's still out here. Yep.
He's got if anyone could preach it, he should be preaching it right there.
Yeah. So I know I've already talked to a few guys that have not wrestled before that are on the football team or thinking about coming out. So, I hope we can continue to push it. And, I tell them if anything, a wrestling practice is going to make a football practice seem quite a bit easier, I feel like. So in my opinion, anyways. So,
yeah.
We
and
mentioned
if it's not, then you're doing something wrong in that wrestling room.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't. Yeah. You're not wrestling. You're doing something else. But yeah, we mentioned that a little bit earlier on the pod. So McNames, do you have any other questions or comments for Joe?
Well, just what's your outlook for your season here? What are we thinking?
I've got a 106 pounder Cam Whitehead. I believe he placed third at the IKWF state championships the past 2 years. He's still a little light, so we're trying to get him as close to 106 as we can. Josh Kalman, he's a senior. He's a heavyweight. Had a pretty good season last year. I think he was one match away from making out of our tough regional. He's dealing with a thumb injury, tore some ligaments in his thumb during football. So he'll be, I think, good to go right around that first week of practice to get back into things. But the rest of it, we're just, still kind of a little bit light on numbers. We're starting to get them built back up, but we're going to be pretty young, a lot of freshmen, sophomores. But I think it's the most hopeful I've been overall. Again, talent-wise, still pretty green, I would say. But like I preached to the guys last year, it's continuous growth. And I know in this day and age, we talked about kids wanting immediate results. And I just preach to these guys, it's this freshman and sophomore year about learning. And then junior, senior year, if you put in that work, that's where you're going to start to hopefully see some results. So I know it's hard to push through 2 wrestling seasons, and accept a lot of losses. But if we can just continue to see them mentally and physically be more competent wrestlers, then I think that's what's going to happen with our junior and senior year. Not to go too much into it, but like I use Sean Ward from a few years ago as a great example. I think that kid had, maybe 5 wins between his freshman and sophomore year. And then he put in some work in his between his sophomore and junior year, and qualified for state his junior year, and then ended up winning his senior year. Right. So it's hard to have those long-term plans like that for yourself. If that's something you want to do, but I tell them it's not unheard of, and I've seen it happen. So you just keep putting in that work, and hopefully you get the results you want. So you just got to work for it.
Good deal.
Yeah, well, great. Thanks, Joe, for coming on, and good luck with the preseason. We'll reach out, and hopefully we can have you on throughout the season to kind of update us on everything. And
sounds good.
Yeah, good luck, and enjoy the rest of the preseason.
Yep.
We'll try it going.